So somebody was asking me this morning, I talk quite a bit about maybe bringing spirituality a little bit too much into the workplace and business and stuff, but at the end of the day, we're humans, right? There's a lot of moral standards that were set a long time ago that I think are important, and I think that it's something that we greatly need to think about, and I'll tell you why. They said, what is the biggest problem we have, and why do we have all these wars, trade wars, everything else? It really comes down to communication. We live in a society where the concept of when doesn't really work. Most situations, whether it be a war that's going on in the Middle East or it's going on in Europe or ones that might happen in the not so distant future in other areas, those wars occur because at the end of the day, a group of people cannot communicate with each other cordially. The reason is we live in a world that has been very much focused on what's called zero-sum games, where I have to lose for you to win, or you have to win for me to lose. The reason I bring spirituality into it is it's really easy. We can talk about philosophy, Stoic stuff, or we can talk about spirituality, or we can talk about game theory. They're all really the same thing. If you listen to some of my other videos, you'll just understand it. But when you go into the mindset, of not having any preconceived notions when you go into a meeting, or with a nationality, or maybe even groups that have been at wars forever. And you can look at both sides and say, okay, how is it that each side can win this conversation? And I've heard people tell me that, for a really good negotiation to happen, both sides feel like they need to lose. That's such backwards thinking, and it's not using different types of variables. It's not thinking about different types of technologies. It's not thinking about, you're just not having enough variables that's how you think. I've had groups that said they would never do business together, that we pulled together and closed deals, and both sides walked away realizing, dang, we both won. And I think it's just getting the smartest people at the same table, that if the goal going in is not for you to win, or me to win, or you to lose, or me to lose, what ends up happening is you actually have a chance to have a win-win. And then when we go past that, once the communication gets better and negotiations get better, then we got to get creative. We're using financial systems that go back to the 1970s. Like Google T+1 or T+2. There is no reason that a financial trade should take 2 days to settle. It's just because we're using antiquated tech. Secondarily, we've decided that this banking financial system we have today, because of, if we go back to the 1920s, we had the Roaring 20s. Why did the Roaring 20s happen? We had central banking coming into play, and what ended happening, greed takes over. People realize that we can try to squeeze the system from out. It's just human nature. And we had the Roaring 20s because at the end of the day, the banking and the retail sector, so where you deposit your money, and the investment banks, they were not separated. So when you made your deposits, they were taking your money and investing it for you, or vice versa. So you didn't have any security. Well, they realized this is kind of a bad idea. In 1933, they created something called Glass-Steagall. Glass-Steagall was in place until 66 years later, in 1999, the Clinton administration, when one component of it was pulled out that separated the wall between your retail deposits and the banks and the investment banking. And why is that a big deal? Well, we saw the dot-com crash that came closely after it. I was in an interesting merger with two tech companies meeting across the table from Carl Icahn's team in the early 2000s. We had the dot-com bubble that came after it, and there's other reasons. It wasn't just that. We also got hyped up on certain technology and the FOMO, missing out. Everything's going on the web now, right? Kind of sounds a little bit like overvaluated. Everybody throws AI into the conversation to evaluate their company, and none of them are using real AI. It's nothing more than generative AI, and it's just machine learning. It's not anything really smart, but they're overselling it just like we were overselling the internet during the dot-com era. Just like CDOs and mortgage-backed securities having the '08 fallout. It's just when we get bubbles, it's really weird how you seem to see this consistency form between financial, fiscal irresponsibility and overselling a tech, right? Blockchain. Everything should be on blockchain. I mean, we're doing some cool stuff with blockchain, but not what the kids did on scamming people, creating Ponzi schemes that were far worse than Madoff with SBF and CZ and Three Arrows, and I can go on and on. It's sad because we see history repeat, and who loses? The consumer. Hence the reason why we need regulatory to come into the systems and get better, because consumers do need to be protected. The crypto kids get mad at groups like the SEC, the FCA, and other organizations, but there's a reason why they need to protect consumers, and it's from, wolves in sheep's clothing, right? Well, if we get past that, we look at, that Glass-Steagall situation, it got worse and worse. So we got to the point in 2019, before the repo market fell out, that basically I audited the top, banks in the world. Top 25 banks, most of them had less than 1% liquidity on cash versus deposits. Kind of interesting, right? Especially if we look at the derivatives position, which Warren Buffett called a weapon of mass destruction. And if you look at that, their derivatives position were all sometimes 2,000 or tens of thousands times their cash position. What had happened during COVID, if we hadn't had COVID and everybody walked into the bank to ask their money back, we would have had a lot of stuff happen like SVB Bank out in Silicon Valley. Stay at home, social distance. I'll say it that. But we also have kind of a similar situation in gold right now. Physical gold versus like paper gold in the world. If everybody goes and does redemptions, it's it. Why does this stuff matter? We've had tightening that's come into place, and with this quantitative tightening, it goes back to making mistakes. We should have never got rid of Glass-Steagall. So what happened is your deposits used to have to be 1:1, but now they're not. So they've been liquidated. And the same thing that we did in the in the Great Depression, we just repeated history. Because somebody gets greedy, they convince the politicians to do something different, and we just keep repeating history. Now we do have better tech. We've got better machine learning. We've got a lot of cool stuff, but we're not taking advantage of that technology and really making a difference because we can't communicate with each other. So if we can learn to cordially do deals that make sense, we can learn to be a little bit more fiscally responsible. We can be a bit kinder to our neighbor and not just have these political divides that we fight just to win-lose. We can make win-wins around the world. And then guess what? We honor the books of face. We get more fiscally responsible. We're nicer to our neighbor. And guess what? The world might have fewer wars and we might do some good stuff. Pretty simple stuff. Anyways, heading into a meeting now. Hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful week. And we'll talk soon. God bless you.